Hey guys, so we're going to continue with the fractions operations. So today we're going to add and subtract mixed numbers and just proper fractions. These are our learning targets. All right, there is a video here to help you guys if you need it. This is just a 3-minute video, so come back and watch this if you need it. All right, so remember when adding and subtracting fractions, you must have a common denominator. Once you do, add or subtract across the top, all right? So if your fractions do not have common denominators, you're not allowed to add or subtract them until they do. All right, so let's practice a few. So here we have number one, they're already common denominators. We love that. That's not much work, right? So as long as the denominators are the same digit, then all we have to do is subtract the numerators. So 5 minus 2 is 3, and our denominator doesn't change. All right, now number two, they are not common denominators. So we want to think of the least the least common multiple of 4 and 8. Well, the least common multiple of 4 and 8 is 8. So our second fraction doesn't change. So what do we do to 4 to get to 8? Well, we would multiply it by 2. So we do the same thing to the bottom as we do to the top. So 2 times 3 is 6. 4 times 2 is 8. So now we have common denominators. So we're changing 3/4 into 6/8. And we're going to add our second fraction of 2/8. Now we have common denominators. Our denominator is an 8. 6 plus 2 is 8. And the last thing we do is simplify. So 8 divided by 8 is 1. That's our final answer. Number 3. What's our least common multiple of 3 and 5? Well, if we listed out our multiples of 3 and 5, we would find that our least common multiple is 15. So both of our denominators are going to change to 15. That's our least common multiple. So 3 times 5 is 15. Whatever we multiply the bottom by, we multiply the top by. So 1 times 5 is 5. So 1/3 becomes 5/15. Then what do we multiply 5 by to get to 15? That answer is 3. Whatever we do to the bottom, we do to the top. So 4 times 3 is 12. Since our denominators are the same, we bring that over in our answer. 5 times 12 is 17. And then we don't want to leave improper fractions. So how many times will 5 go into 17? The answer is 1 with 2 left over. So our final answer is 1 and 2/15. All right, number 4. We want to think of our least common multiple of 6 and 4. So we could list out our multiples of 6 and 4. And we would find that 12 is the least common multiple. So we want both of our denominators to be 12. So how do we get from 6 to 12? We multiply by 2. Whatever we do to the denominator, we do to the numerator. So 5 times 2 is 10. So we've renumbered 5, 6 to 10/12. And then how do we get from 4 to 12? We multiply by 3. Whatever we do to the bottom, we do to the top. So 1 times 3 is 3. Now we're ready to subtract. Our denominator stays at 12. 10 minus 3 is 7. 7 and 12 have no common factors, so that's our final answer. Number 5, and I want you guys to pause the video and try to do 5 and 6 on your own. All right, so what's our least common denominator, or our least common multiple of 7 and 3? The answer is 21. So we're going to change both of our denominators to 21. How do we get from 7 to 21? We multiply by 3. Whatever we do to the bottom, we do to the top. So 3 times 3 is 9. How do we get from 3 to 21? We multiply by 7. So whatever we do to the bottom, we do to the top. 7 times 2 is 14. Now we're ready to add our numerators because our denominators are the same. So 14 plus 9 is 23. This is an improper fraction, so we want to know how many times will 21 go into 23. The answer is 1 with 2 left over. Oops. So our final answer is 1 and 2/23. Number 6, what's our least common multiple of 8 and 10? Well, the answer is 40. So we want both of our denominators to be 40. How do we get from 8 to 40? We multiply by 5. So we're going to multiply our numerator by 5 as well. 7 times 5 is 35. How do we get from 10 to 40? We multiply by 4. We multiply our numerator by 4. 1 times 4 is 4. That means we're ready to subtract. So our denominator stays the same. 35 minus 4 is 31. 31 and 40 have no common factors, so that's our final answer. All right, let's look at a few more, you guys. Now, let me erase all this. So you also, oh, and there's the answers. Yay, I think we got them all right. All right, now you'll also have to add and subtract mixed numbers. So I want you to write this down somewhere for adding. So when you are adding mixed numbers, write this down. I do not have to change them, mixed numbers into improper fractions. Improper fractions. Okay, so when you're adding, you do not have to change the mixed number into improper fractions, okay? Which makes it a little bit easier. With subtraction, most of the time you do have to change it to an improper fraction, but not always. So we'll look at an example of both. All right, so we want to think first of our common denominators. So first of all, we're adding. We do not have to turn these into improper fractions. So at first, we're going to ignore our whole numbers completely. We're just ignoring the whole numbers, all right? Let's just focus on the fractions. We want to think of a common denominator with 8 and 10. I think we just did one similar to this. Our least common multiple of 8 and 10 is 40. So let's work on that first. All right, how do we get from 8 to 40? We multiply by 5. We multiply 7 by 5. And 7 times 5 is 35. How do we get from 10 to 40? We multiply by 4. So we're going to multiply 3 by 4, and we get 12. For a minute, we ignored our whole numbers, but now we're going to bring them over in our answer, or in our problem. All right, so we're going to add our whole numbers. So what's 6 plus 1? 6 plus 1 is 7. Now let's worry about our fraction. We know our denominator is 40. Now all we have to do is add 35 and 12. So 35 plus 12 is 42. All right, we're going to ignore that whole number again. Let's look at our improper fraction. How many times will 40 go into 42? The answer is 1 with 2 left over, right? All right, can we simplify 2 over 40? Yes, we can divide both of those by 2. So when we simplify, we get 1 and 1 over 20. Well, now we can't ignore our whole number anymore. So we bring down our 7. And the last thing we do is combine our whole numbers. So 7 plus 1 is 8. And we bring over our fraction. Our final answer in simplest form is 8 and 1/20. So if you need to rewind the video and watch that part a couple of times, then please do so. but this answer is 8 1/20. All right, I'm moving on to the next problem. All right, so I told you guys sometimes we do not have to change our subtraction problems, which are mixed numbers, into improper fractions. And this is an example of when you don't have to change it. And I'll show you as we move through this example, I'll show you why it's fine the way it is. All right, but the first thing we have to do is change our denominators so they're the same. So what's the least common multiple of 12 and 3? The least common multiple of 12 and 3 is 12, so we're going to ignore those whole numbers for a minute. So we're going to worry about 11/12. We're going to change 2/3 to something over 12. Well, how do we get from 3 to 12? We multiply by 4. Whatever we do to the bottom, we do to the top. So 4 times 2 is 8. All right, so our fractions look good. Now we're going to bring over those whole numbers. Since our fractions look good, we're going to subtract 7 minus 4 is 3. Our denominator is a 12. And 8 from 11 is what? 3, 8, 9, 10, 11. Yep. Now, since our fraction can be simplified, let's ignore the 3 for a minute. What can we divide 3 and 12 by? We can divide them both by 3. So 3 divided by 3 is 1, and 12 divided by 3 is 4. And finally, we don't always ignore our whole number. And our final answer in smallest terms or simplest terms is 3 1/4. So that one worked. We did not have to turn this subtraction problem into improper fractions. But sometimes you're going to have to. So let me show you an example of when that's going to happen. So let's look at this problem. So I'm going to keep the previous one on the screen so we can talk about how these are different. So the first thing we're going to do is find common denominators with 2 and 8. What's the least common multiple of 2 and 8? So the answer is 8. So we're going to bring over 3/8 minus something and something over 8. How do we get from 2 to 8? We multiply by 4. We multiply the top by the same number we multiply the bottom by. Well, 1 times 4 is 4. Now look at these fractions. There's no way to take 4 from 3 because 4 is bigger than 3. So this is the scenario when you have to turn your subtraction problems into improper fractions. You have to change this mixed number into an improper fraction, and it's in this scenario when you're subtracting and the second numerator is bigger than the first one, okay? So how do y'all understand what I'm saying? If this numerator is greater than this numerator, you must turn your subtraction problems into improper fractions. You never have to turn, when you're adding, you never have to turn your two numbers into improper fractions. But you will have to when you're subtracting and the second numerator is bigger than the first numerator. All right, so we're going to multiply 37 times 8. So remember, we're going to go around the world. Going to go around the world, and 37 times 8, and then we're going to add 3. So 37 times 8 is 296, and 296 plus 3 is 299 over 8. And we're going to subtract that from, here we're going to go around the world. So we're going to multiply 36 times 8, which is 288, plus 4 is 292. 292 over 8. And now our denominators are the same. So when we subtract 299 minus 292, we get 7/8. And guys, we're done because that's in simplest form. Okay. So when do you have to turn your subtraction problems into improper fractions? Only after you found common denominators and you find that the second numerator is greater than the first one. That's the only time you have to turn subtraction problems, which are mixed numbers, into improper fractions. You never have to do that for adding mixed numbers. Sometimes you don't have to do that with subtracting if the second numerator is smaller than the first numerator, like we did on this example number 2. All right, you guys, so good luck on your work today. So I'll be back in the office on Thursday. Let me know if you have questions and I will help you then. Have a great day.